You got it all figured out? Everything set?
As far as
Your personnel, you got everything figured?
absolutely not. No, I mean, we're still, game one's going to tell a lot. We just have so many new guys. I think, depth's pretty good. Feel confident that we've got good depth everywhere. Good competition at a lot of different position groups, but no, definitely don't have it all figured out. I think we're still trying to, come together as a group and, keep challenging these guys to keep pushing, through the heat of camp and everything else, and keeps training to get where we want to be, as far as the end goal. So we're definitely far from a finished product going into the season, and that's typical for most teams. But last year we had a really experienced team coming back, and so it'll be a different challenge this year for sure.
Depth in the front four has kind of been some of what's gotten it done for you the last couple of years, and obviously all the front four are gone. It started at least last year. Do you think though you're going to have a similar situation with that front four?
Well, I think we're gonna have good depth. The production remains to be seen. I think that's obviously the game's gonna be able to tell that story. I think there's guys that we feel like are trending the right way and have a lot of upside. But to your point, those were four really dominant guys up front last year. But I think you've got guys like Cam and Isaiah who have played almost as many snaps as the guys that started last year. So when you look at there were games where Cam had 30 to 40 snaps last year. So it's can he take his game to the next level, and then is the guy behind him going to be as productive as he was? And so, I think we've got a lot of new guys that are doing a lot of good things. We just got to keep trending in the right direction. And I think understand, as coaches, we're not very patient, and we don't have time to be patient. But we're going to be far from a finished product when we start the season, and the old adage is so true. The biggest jump you can make is week 1 to week 2, and obviously, we're gonna have to be ready to play well week 1, and then just keep progressing from there. So, but I think there's a lot of positive things. I think we have more depth than we've had collectively as a defense. It's just remains to be seen in a live game situation where we're at and how well we can execute and get off blocks and tackle and cover and the base fundamentals playing good defense.
As fall camp wraps up, how have you seen some of the leaders on defense emerge and hold guys accountable through the tough times?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you see in some position groups strong leadership. Guys like Alex Kilgore, Zaki's a natural leader. It's very genuine and authentic. To guys in the safety room where Zay and Ahmad are probably not, maybe haven't had to be those guys. They've more done it with their play. You had, a Jonathan McGill in that room. Brandon Cross is some of those guys are a little more vocal. And so, I've been proud to see them try to emerge into those roles. And I look at the small things, yes, you see the times where guys, you got to step up and you got to say something, but it's also in the little things. We're doing a walkthrough and guys communicating formations and knowing tendencies and alerts and these type of things. Like, that's really good to see from those guys and their maturity. And then I think you've got some position rooms that, the leadership still needs to continue to emerge, that maybe we're not at that point that we fully want to be yet. To your point, if you've got a bunch of new D linemen, like who's going to step up? Jeffrey has a lot of natural leadership qualities, and he's a guy that, we need to produce on the field at a high level, but also, be a great vocal leader in that room. Some of those other guys are not, maybe as vocal, like Jeff being an older guy, like, more vocal guy, like we need him to emerge in that role. Cam, same thing, into his role as long as he's been here. So, definitely see some positives, but a big area, that we got to continue to grow, I think is in that regard, that continuity for sure.
What have been the keys for you throughout your career, your successful defenses? Is there a couple of things that you've noticed that they've all had?
Yeah, I think the first thing is you've got to have the right staff. You got to have the right people in the building. I think anytime as a coordinator you get as many guys that are quality coaches and that you can trust, because at the end of the day, if we don't enjoy working together, it's going to be miserable. And I think as players you can read through that. Like if coaches don't get along, if we're not a tight, cohesive group, you got to have guys that can coach ball at a high level. There's a good amount of rah-rah guys, in my opinion, that aren't great coaches. Like, we need guys that can motivate, that can recruit, and go coach. And so, when I look at our staff here, when I look at staffs at previous places that I've been, like, this is a really, really strong staff here of, where we can walk out of a meeting and I feel confident that, guys are taking ownership, guys are providing input. Like, when we get into game plan mode, it's not me, it's everybody's going to have a piece of what's being involved. So I think you have to start there, because if the foundation is not right, it really doesn't matter. And then, to your point, I think, you got to be dominant up front. You got to have a great D-line, and if you have a great D-line, there's a lot of things you can do on the back end. When we're average at that spot, then, I think it shows. So, but when you have the right staff, you create the right chemistry, the right culture, the right buy-in, guys play hard, they hang on everything that we're telling them, then you have a chance, because defense is truly a team sport. I mean, offense is too, but year one we had Tanner Mordecai and Rasheed. You know what I mean? And that was like 80% of our offense, it seemed like, some games, but people still couldn't cover them, And so on defense, it's a little bit different, I think, as you guys know. So I think if you have the foundation, you have the right chemistry, the right culture, it gives you a chance. Doesn't mean you're going to win every game, but at least you got a solid foundation and building block, for the future.
To your point of guys buying in and listening, the swarm mentality, when did that, kind of come about, for you as a coach, and just what was the process like of getting the guys to buy into that?
Yeah, I think the biggest probably influencer on me, that's my mentor, is the head coach at Harding University. And he was, when I got there as a GA, he was the D-line coach who then became the DC and is now the head coach. And he's just a man's man. I mean, he's old school. He's not going to be an X's and O's ball guy. He's a fundamentals guy. He's a D-line guy. But man, our kids play so hard, and that was the thing that he stressed. And I think as a young coach, there's a lot of things that you overlook, that you think you know it all. And I look back and, like, really when I break down their success that they've had there since I've left there, because I got to spend 4 years there, they're always successful. They stop the run. They play really hard. They can run the football. They now run the option, which we transitioned to in my time there. So, just seeing how he stressed the little details about playing hard and effort and fundamentals, and we were never going to necessarily out-scheme you up or coach you. That wasn't his MO. His MO was our kids were going to play harder than anybody. And so, being around a guy like that early in my career, Paul Symons, like, had a huge impact on me. And so I think that's where it definitely all started, was being under him.
The nickel spot, a lot of change, losing CJ.
Yeah.
You had guys that have come in Lamadric. You had Jaden, it looks like, playing there.
Mm-hmm.
Who's out in the spring, and
Yep.
Kyron's come on. What's that position looking like, just as a whole?
Yeah, I think. I told Coach after today, we're thin at practice squad running backs, and Kyron stepped up and played running back on practice squad, and we couldn't tackle him. I told Coach today, I said, hey, y'all need to look at the film. It was unbelievable. Like I said, he could play running back for us, which it was a really good running back at one point in high school. But those guys have been battling out, all three of them. The good thing about, Ahmad started at nickel half the season and played a lot more snaps towards the second half of the season over CJ. So worst case scenario, I know Ahmad can go get it done at nickel. Now, ideally, Ahmad's an elite post safety, and so you'd like to be able to keep him in the post as much as possible. But, Lamadric's jump from spring to right now has been marketable. He was, considerably, I felt like, behind Kyron in the spring. To where he's at right now, he's produced at a high level. Still some rawness to his game that we got to keep refining, from hands, man technique, getting handsy at times, to just open field tackle stuff. But he's really been coachable. And then Jaden's just very consistent at that position. Jaden's graded out the highest throughout camp. Lamadric's been a little bit more productive at times, and so Kyron's been productive at times, but just consistent level of consistency there. So 3 good options, and I plan on, all those guys getting a chance to play early, and I think it's definitely the most depth we've had at nickel, and all 3 I think would start at a lot of places. So we'll let the film tell the tape, and let them get reps early on in the season, and kind of go from there.
The linebacker position, you've got Alexander and Zakai, and a bunch of options. What's that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, if you're asking who rolls out week one, I mean, obviously Kilgore, but I think between, you know, the next three to me that have emerged is, you know, I think Barker's done some really good things. Brandon Booker, both Brandons are as improved as any two guys I mean, you know, we got to see it in games, and we're going to have to produce, and I think there's going to be some learning curves, but, you know, Book hadn't played in a lot of games. Villasana has played in a lot of games. We played probably 20 snaps against Penn State. So, I trust that, you know, him in games early is going to be a little bit more confident, but like I have a lot of confidence in those two guys. I mean, we're going to have to play at least 4 linebackers. So, you know, I think we're in a better spot than initially. You know, we just wanted to see that second year growth, and, you know, really started to see that for Booker. And then, you know, I think it's finally started to slow down for Brandon Villasana, where, you know, it'd been a couple of years and you were kind of waiting, like, is it going to come? And I think that's probably a level of maturity too. And I think he would probably tell you that less off the field distractions and just growing up and embracing, like, hey, if I want to be good at this, this is what I have to do. So, you know, excited to see where they're at when we play our first game, and, you know, just continue to coach them hard. And I know Coach Crone's done a great job developing those guys.
Anything else?
Good.